Every decision about your dog is yours alone, and nobody talks about what that actually costs.
Welcome to The Dog Who Asked for More, the podcast for dog parents navigating the messy, complicated parts of life with a dog who needs more, so you can feel less alone in the hard parts, more confident in your decisions, and more connected to the dog who asked you to show up differently.
I'm Em, a dog mom, former vet tech, dog trainer, and canine nutritionist who has made every hard call alone and who works with dog parents who are doing the same. There's a specific kind of tired that comes from being the only decision maker, not the tired that comes from doing a lot, the tired that comes from deciding everything, from being the person who researches and weighs and second guesses and ultimately has to just choose with no one to check in with, no one to say, does this sound right to you? No one who is as invested in the outcome as you are. Before I became a trainer, I did pet sitting and dog walking. And the plan, the actual financial plan, was that Fitz would come with me on jobs, that he would be part of how I made it work. And then he became reactive. And I couldn't bring a reactive dog into other people's homes or around other dogs in general. And I started having to turn jobs down on disability during a pandemic after a natural disaster that had disrupted housing across the region. The cost of his reactivity wasn't just emotional. It was financial in a way that changed what was possible for us. And I made every one of those calculations alone. And then there's the food questions, the ones that live in my head constantly. Even now, do I stay with what I know is okay? What I know his gut tolerates? What I know doesn't affect his behavior? Or do I try something that might serve him better nutritionally? What if that causes GI issues? And what if that transition stresses him out? What if I make a call I think is the right call and it makes things worse? Those questions don't have a clean answer, and I carry all of it alone. I have the training to carry it. I'm a canine nutritionist. I know more about this than most people, and it's still hard because knowing doesn't always make the deciding easier. Sometimes it just means you understand all of the ways you could get it wrong. And a food choice that causes a vet visit isn't just stressful. It's a financial calculation on top of everything else. And all of that math is mine every single time. A lot of people I work with are doing this alone, single households, situations where their partner isn't invested in the same way, people who have support in other areas of their life, but not in this one, because nobody around them really gets it. Nobody understands why you're still researching at midnight or why the food decisions are still keeping you up at night. And so you don't explain it anymore. You just carry it. And it looks like dedication from the outside. And it is. But it's also the specific exhaustion of having no one to share any of this with and knowing that that's not going to change. Disability added a layer to this for me that I don't talk about often, because it's not just that I was making decisions alone, it was that the resources available to me were extremely limited, that the margin for error was smaller, that every call I made had a cost attached to it that I had to absorb completely on my own. No buffer, no backup, just me and the math. And here's the thing about making decisions alone for a long time. You start to lose confidence in your own judgment. Not because you're making bad calls. Often you're making really good ones, but because you never get the feedback loop of someone you trust saying, yes, that makes sense, or yes, I think that's right. You're just out there deciding and living with the outcomes and deciding again. And the second guessing builds, and the research spiral builds, and the middle of the night worry builds. And what started out as just being the only one starts to feel like being alone in something that was always supposed to be shared. What I've learned, slowly, imperfectly, is that finding even one person who actually gets it changes the math. Not because they make the decisions for you, but because you're not carrying it in complete isolation anymore. There's a difference between making the call yourself and making it with someone who understands why the call is hard. You're not supposed to do all of this alone. And the fact that you've been doing it anyway for this long is not something to minimize. Because here's what that actually costs. It's not just the tiredness, it's the slow erosion of trust in your own instincts. The way the second guessing compounds over time. The way you stop being able to tell the difference between a decision you've thought through and a decision you're hoping is right because you're too depleted to think about it properly. And your dog feels that. A dysregulated pet parent raises a dysregulated dog, not because of anything you're doing wrong, but because the nervous system you're bringing into the room is carrying a lot. And your dog can feel it. Even when you find someone to talk to, even when you're not completely alone in it anymore, the decisions are still yours. The call is still yours to make. The outcome is still yours to live with. The support changes what it feels like to decide. It doesn't change the fact that you're the one deciding. And sitting with that is its own thing. The decisions will always be yours. That's not going to change. But some of the isolation around those decisions doesn't have to be permanent. Finding the right community, even just one person who understands what you're managing, changes what it feels like to make that call. And for the practical side, the food, the supplements, the gears, everything I actually use day to day with Toby and Fitz is in one place right now. So when you're making those decisions alone at midnight, you at least know where I land on the product side of it. The link to our shop.pet store is in the description. What would it feel like to make one of those decisions with someone in your corner instead of being completely alone? You've been deciding everything alone for a long time. That's not weakness. That's just the reality of what this asks of you. And you've kept going anyway. That matters. And you don't have to keep doing it in complete isolation. And if you're sitting there thinking, I need someone who actually gets what this costs, a clarity call is exactly that. One conversation, no agenda, just honest eyes on your specific situation. The link to book is in the episode description. So be kind, spread joy, and remember, carrying it alone this long means you're stronger than you know, but you don't have to keep proving it.